And we are back here live at the Republican National Convention in
We are in Milwaukee. We've been here all week.
Politicsincolor.com, politicsincolor.com. Derek Kennedy and former Mayor Rudy Giuliani.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Or as I still call you, Mayor Giuliani. As a New Yorker, you were America's mayor. Does that bother you when people call you America's mayor?
No.
Okay.
Oprah Winfrey gave me that designation.
Did she really?
Yeah, She introduced me that way at the memorial at Yankee Stadium about 5 days after the terrible tragedy. And so I've always, yes, I like it.
Okay. Well, you speak of that tragedy, and that's kind of when you became America's mayor after 9/11. You showed great leadership during that time, and that's how you were able to get that name for all of these years. When you look at what has just happened, the attempted assassination on Donald Trump, and now, all of the GOP people are saying that he's a fighter, he's a leader. Do you see any similiarities as to when you were on the ground for 9/11 to what happened to him on Saturday in Ohio?
The moment I saw it on television, first I was shocked. He's also a personal friend for 35 years. I was his lawyer. I've spent an enormous amount of time with him and been through many things with him. So there was first a personal fear that we were going to lose him. I think I reacted first like he was a friend. And then I said to myself, oh, my goodness, this is, from my point of view, to crossroads in America, and he's the leader through that crossroads. And for a second you think, well, maybe he's gone. I did think from watching it that it was a grazing shot. So I told my two colleagues who were with me, I think it's all right. And then I remembered I'm the one who arrested Hinckley after the shooting of Ronald Reagan, handled that case, as well as the after-action report. And I all of a sudden remembered that's what we thought with President Reagan. We thought he was fine. He thought he was fine. Headed back to the White House, and all of a sudden the Secret Service agent, who gets great credit for this, realized he was bleeding profusely, and the bullet was very much like President Trump. The bullet was like this far from his heart or his lungs. It was like another little, and he was dead. So I said, I guess we better watch out for that. Then when they took him up, I was kind of angry. I thought they made a terrible mistake in the way they exposed his face originally.
Keeping him there without rushing him off.
Yeah, they sort of almost made him a target for a bit. You wonder, I did say, who the hell are these Secret Service agents? This is ridiculous. I mean, I know this work. When I was mayor of New York, we had to protect President Clinton, President Bush. The presidents come to New York all the time. New York City Police Department plays a really big role, much bigger than most police departments. So I do know a lot about it, and I ran a security business. So this is something that's kind of like a professional thing. So immediately I said, this is crazy. What are they doing? Then they got him under control, and then, of course, he pushed his head out. But you know that a presidential candidate or a president's going to do that. But you know you can't control that, but you can control what you can do, and they didn't.
He's also a big guy.
He's a big guy, and how about adrenaline?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the adrenaline flowing through his body at that point? I had seen this happen to him 4 years ago in Nevada. When I was with him, I introduced him, and as soon as I stepped down off the stage, somebody yelled out, "Gun!" The Secret Service reacted like you saw immediately, except in this case, they sort of tackled him off the stage. I mean, I had forgotten how rough they are. I mean, it was like one of those mean, punitive NFL tackles, and they drove him backstage, and immediately he said they wanted to go. He said, "I'm not going. I'm going back. I'm going to see this through until it's settled," and he remained behind. So that's a natural instinct that he has.
Well, we've been talking
instinct
about
of a leader.
What do you think? There's reports now, Axios has reported that the Democrats are getting closer to making a decision and that President Biden's going to step down from the race. Your thoughts on that, and do you see that having, what type of impact do you see that having going forward?
gosh, who knows, right? You know who it's going to be. I mean, so I'll give you two different reactions.
Okay.
As a Republican, just politician, I would say I'd rather have Biden. He's the known. He's got some incredibly known problems, problems that are not going to get any better.
Health-wise.
Health-wise. He has dementia, and dementia just gets worse. It doesn't get better. But as an American, I feel better. I've been very uncomfortable with President Biden being there for several years now because I don't think he's mentally up to the job. And you worry, what will he make some really catastrophic decision? And also, it just isn't right to have a president who's mentally unfit. So there are people who criticize Kamala Harris, but that's the usual political criticism. She's not. There's no indication that Kamala Harris has a mental illness or a mental impairment. And I always thought that stuff about, well, you know, she's his safety. That's ridiculous.
No, Vice President Kamala Harris is up to it.
And she doesn't meet that. The standard is he mentally fit to carry out the office? Mm-hmm. Biden isn't. She is, and so are most other people. And we should have done this a while back.
So the impact on the race going forward?
I don't know. I mean, I think the Democrats probably are politically correct to do it. They know they're going to lose. I mean, I shouldn't say that. No one ever knows what happens in politics.
Right.
I guess a miracle could happen from Biden's point of view and he could win. But by any rational thinking, Biden is a ticket to defeat. Somebody else may or may not have a hard time, but at least have a chance.
And what if it was Vice President Kamala Harris?
She'd have a better chance than Biden. I think we would beat her. I think President Trump has run a really remarkable campaign, much better than he's ever run
well, this is
before.
the first time he's had like a full chance to campaign.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
And he really is. I mean, he's even changed as a candidate. And even before this happened to him, I've talked to him a bit since then, and there is something different about him.
But do you think that's been? You mean prior to the attempt from the shot? You think because the news is he's changed since Saturday, right? Because he was, the rhetoric was still there prior to Saturday, right? People were saying that he was unfit to carry out office because of some of his
shooting.
Virtual, all of the rhetoric that he has spilled out and some of the things he's been involved in.
Well, I think. I was talking about the confrontation with death and what that does to you. I could, maybe it's in my mind, but I even thought there was something a little different about his voice. It seemed more spiritual. Now I've gone through that, so and I have friends who have gone through it. So on September 11, I was trapped for a half hour, and when we first called, Governor Pataki said, "Oh, thank God you're alive. You and Bernie Kerik are alive." I didn't realize we were in a building that got hit. We were trapped in the building. But then when I saw the pictures of it later, I realized that just a little change in the way a few things fell, we would have been completely crushed.
Wow.
And we got hurt, but we didn't get completely crushed.
Brushed with death.
Yeah, so I said to myself, but for the grace of God, if the wind is blowing a little more this way, you're gone. It gives you a certain feeling of the importance of life and how to look at other things that you always thought were important and they're really not.
And so do you
I'm
think
interested to hear his speech tonight.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. So do you think this unifying message we heard from his granddaughter last night, we heard from Donald Trump Jr. about, mainly his granddaughter, about family and love and, Grandpa was this close and we would miss him. Do you think what happened Saturday is making him change his speach for tonight and making it a more unifying tone
100%.
like we heard from his granddaughter?
I can't tell you exactly in what form or how much, but there's no doubt it'll be a different speech. And it'll be similar to the tone and the speeches you heard leading up to it. Because he did have a role in, I'm not going to say editing those speeches, but he did have a role in changing some of the themes, like the night where there was a great deal of, or not a great deal of discussion, but each one of them in one way or another mentioned God. He wanted that.
Okay.
He wanted that in their speeches, and maybe they'd have put it there anyway, but he wanted that to run through the whole theme, right?
As we've listened to the discussions during the primary process, there was a lot of discussion about the challenging of the election. We know the campaigns tack more to the center when you get to the general election. Is that question, is that issue going to continue to play a role in the dialogue going forward?
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it that, but I have to see how everybody reacts to it. 3 weeks from now, when it changes a bit. But right now, I think there's going to be a real emphasis on unity. We're just less than a week away. He is from losing his life, and I think that's going to have a big impact on the kind of speech that he gives. Then the question becomes 3 or 4 weeks from now. I don't mean just a Democratic convention, but when you get into they're going to start, sort of mixing it up again. Does it stick, and how much does it stick? I do think it's going to reduce permanently the rhetoric a bit.
Okay.
What's the who is?
Well, I think everybody knows. Let's just look at it politically for a minute. Because of this, I think everybody knows they're going to pay a price for it. That maybe they wouldn't have paid. You could have said things before, and now I think people are going to see that you shouldn't talk this way. Whether it did have anything to do with this guy or not, it could have.
On both sides.
Yeah, it could have.
Yeah.
So how about we all calm it down?
I know we have to let you go. My last question: if it's not Joe Biden, what candidate if they put up would concern you the most?
Well, I think Kamala, for the simple reason that it's the least amount of revision that has to be done. Worst thing at this time is it's very hard to switch to another candidate right now. She's the least amount of switch that has to go on, and nobody else is materially better than she is. I think as a Republican, I'd rather face somebody that gets pulled out of left field.
There
Thank
he
you
is.
very much, Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining us today.
Thank you.
We're here live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at the Republican National Convention. Derek Kennedy, Wilmer Leon here. PoliticsInColor.com is where you are. We're going now to an interview that we've had with Senator Marco Rubio. Stay with us.
News outlets, including Axios, reporting that the Biden presidency may be coming close to its end. Biden campaign may be coming close to its end. What are your thoughts on that? How does this change the race?
Pretty undemocratic, anti-democratic. The Democrats say they're the defender of democracy. You have 14 million primary voters on the Democratic side pick Joe Biden, and now they're going to just kick him off. Number two. If they're going to remove him as president, as a candidate, because they don't think he has the mental acuity, well, you don't have the mental acuity to be a candidate. How can you have the mental acuity to be president? Shouldn't they remove him as president as well? Number three is, why'd they cover it up for so long? Did they just discover it a month ago at the debate? They knew this, and they covered it up from the American people. So those are my three options. And number four, who's running the country? If he is not of a mental state to be a candidate, who is running our country today? Who's running the country? Somebody's got to tell us who's running the country.
Well, it's not a 25th Amendment move. It doesn't appear to be right now at this moment.
Well, then why are they removing him as a candidate?
Well, he's withdrawing his candidacy potentially right now.
But why? Well, the reason is because he had a debate and people are like, oh my God, this guy's, he's unfortunately declined rapidly from a mental acuity perspective.
Yeah, I think
we're going to leave him in charge of the nuclear weapons?
Yeah, I think folks have said that at least members of his party have seemed to say that he's unfit to be a candidate, which doesn't necessarily equate to being unfit to be president.
Oh, I think being a candidate's easier than being president. I mean, candidates, you give speeches, presidents make decisions, important decisions, to put people in harm's way. The candidate is the easy part. President is the hard part.
In what ways does this change the race?
I don't know. I mean, it would have to be Kamala Harris. I mean, they can't remove her. I mean, how would they explain? They made her vice president. And then you make someone vice president, you're saying that person can be president. So there has to be her. And, Biden was a figurehead for leftist policies, radical left-wing policies. Kamala Harris is a legitimate left-wing political person. I mean, you look at every crazy idea that comes from the left. She hasn't just said, I'm for them. She's voted for them. She's co-sponsored them. So she would be by far the furthest left candidate we've ever had for the presidency in the United States. She is, in essence, has a long record of actually supporting and voting for and trying to implement into law the policies that have done damage to this country under the Biden presidency. And I think she'll have a lot to answer for. But, I don't know what's going to happen. That's their problem to figure out.
One last question. How are you with the new VP pick?
It's a good pick, and people saw it last night. This is a real guy. I mean, I'm telling you, this is a really smart guy, very curious, learns about a lot of things, but at the same time is like a real person. He's not it's not fake. I mean, it's just real. It's somebody most Americans would recognize, and who I think's personal story really speaks to the promise of America.
Thank you so much. We have to go right here for ABC.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.